Thousands of Los Angeles commuters were shocked by a sudden and eerie sight in the early evening sky that many mistook for a UFO or an asteroid flyby. Motorists were so distracted by the spectacle that it created a bit of chaos on the busy LA freeways. What so many Californians witnessed was the launch of a rocket called SpaceX Falcon 9, which is the brainchild of South African billionaire Elon Musk. The launch from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne contained a secret payload, which is codenamed Zuma, the details of which have been kept under wraps, thus fueling a certain amount of speculation about the actual purpose of the rocket launch. According to a series of tabloid magazines and websites, Elon Musk, a global elitist, has met several times with high-ranking U.S. politicians and military officials in late 2017. These meetings were intended to enlist private monetary contributions from wealthy donors so that the space project could go forward in secret, and thus the government would dissolve itself of culpability in the event that the project failed. The contractor 𝗦𝗲𝗰𝗲 Grumman, which is the maker of the payload and are involved in the launch of the restricted cargo, has indicated that the project is being conducted on behalf of the U.S. government as a cost-effective approach to the access of space for government missions. Shortly after the launch of the SpaceX rocket, as was seen from Hawthorne, California, another launch took place, this time from Cape Canaveral, Florida, on the first week of January 2018, as shown here. Now, there is considerable mystery surrounding these rocket launches, since it is unknown why the government has deemed this so important as to carry with this project special protection and secrecy. The payload blasted into space under the cover of darkness while millions were viewing the initial launch via a live video feed. Almost immediately after the payload separated from the booster, the feed was permanently cut off, as was witnessed, so that whatever payload the rocket was carrying would not be seen by the general public. When contacted about the live feed blackout, both SpaceX and the Pentagon refused to comment and remained tight-lipped. What 𝗦𝗲𝗰𝗲 Grumman indicated was that the cargo would be placed into low Earth orbit, providing no further details regarding its purpose. For its part, SpaceX has launched prior national security payloads, including a spy satellite for the National Reconnaissance Office, as well as a spaceplane called X-37B for the United States Air Force. But the mystery deepens regarding these space launches. Some are speculating that the rocket is actually destined to probe the depths of space for a brown dwarf planet that is hidden in our solar system, which then explains why these payloads have been classified. The cargo contains specific instruments created to accomplish two important missions: to gauge Nibiru's timeline, which has been almost impossible to estimate, and the other being to determine the effects wrought on our planet once it crosses our path. What is most interesting in all of the speculation surrounding this space mission is its possible connection to the legendary planet Nibiru, which is neither being confirmed or denied by the SpaceX pioneer or any officials at its headquarters. It has never been spoken of publicly. If you visit the SpaceX website, you will notice that the company's ambition is to revolutionize space technology, the ultimate goal being to enable Earth's inhabitants the opportunity to live on other planets. But why? Is there a reason that humanity is suddenly preparing the technology that would make it possible to inhabit other worlds? What is their motive, and why is it all a secret? We must ask ourselves these questions. You see, not all speculation is conjecture. Sometimes the truth is hidden in the midst of the secrecy. We may never know the real truth here, and yet it becomes our responsibility to seek absolute answers rather than accepting half-truths and smokescreens about the purpose of the rocket launches from both California and Florida. We are presently witnessing an unbelievable, if not unprecedented, decline in the energy output of the sun, which is said to be the most rapid decline in nearly 10,000 years. Granted, the sun produces energy cycles every 11 years or so, but something is much different about the present cycle. It seems extremely abnormal, which may bring very bad consequences. Scientists will tell you that disasters are the most consequential when the energy output of the sun declines, since it becomes easier for cosmic energy particles to penetrate the Earth's surface as the planet's natural shielding is weakened. But it looks like this time around, the consequences of a dormant sun are much more severe. The last event to have such dire consequences for the world was during the Great Famine of the 14th century. It started with bad weather in the spring of the year 1315, in which there was a significant crop failure that lasted until the summer harvest of 1317. Europe did not fully recover from this event until the year 1322. The crisis set in motion the great economic collapse that began during the 14th century. There are similar comparisons to what happened then compared to what is happening now. Today's society mistakenly believes that they have conquered every worldly aspect, that humanity can even control the climate. Many of you may have forgotten the history of what took place in the 14th century. The collapse of the weather during the medieval period was quick and deadly. What followed was bitter cold winters and perpetual frozen rains. Plagues and various types of disease then correlate to the decline in temperatures. As the weather worsened, the first disease began to appear in the livestock, followed by consecutive years of crop failure, which then launched the years of famine, leading to the deaths of as much as 15% of Northern Europe's population. The concern we have today, regardless of what may actually be causing this, is the similarities we are seeing develop around the world with regard to the steady output of extreme weather on the planet and the decline in the energy output of the sun, which could set in motion the beginning of another mini ice age on Earth within the next decade, one that resembles the deep freeze of Europe in the first few months of 1709. In that year, the food supply was wiped out by a retest of the lows that were experienced in the 14th century. People were actually ice skating on the canals of Venice, which was completely unusual to witness such cold that far south on the water. People were also able to cross the Baltic Sea by horseback at this time because it was completely frozen. The years between now and 2024 will be a time of great change, filled with consequential events for the generation and for the generations to come. It seems that we have reached the point of no return, and must therefore ride out the storm that approaches, and we must do so with strength and fortitude if we are to survive what comes. The surge of extreme weather today has no boundaries. It affects all people and all nations, and it is merciless in its ramifications across the planet. What we see developing over many years is very perplexing. In Augusta, Maine, the Kennebec River unexpectedly flooded on January 13th, after large amounts of rain and snowmelt caused chunks of ice to break free, creating a dam that blocked the flow of the river. The water surged well above the 12-foot flood stage, reaching close to 20 feet before receding. As the river overflowed its banks, cars became encased in ice and rising waters. This is just another in a series of bizarre weather events for the year. In Michigan, a blast of winds from the north produced high waves along the lakefront of Whiting. Everything near the shoreline was completely frozen, turning them into ice sculptures. Ice spheres also formed on January 13th at the Little Sable Point Lighthouse on Lake Michigan. Some of the spheres were 3 feet in circumference. In Croatia, freezing fog was responsible for these impressive images. Ice jam issues are rearing their ugly head on waterways this winter. Sub-zero temperatures quickly froze lakes and rivers across the Northeast and Midwest, but that was followed by a brief and mild warm-up, with temperatures surging 10 to 20 degrees above normal, which were mixed with rain, creating the melt that broke up the ice and created the jams. The ice flow is knocking trailers off of their foundations, and it is surrounding houses in huge chunks of ice. There has been some exceptional anomalies this winter, from bomb storm Grayson to snow in the Sahara to ice spheres on Lake Michigan to snow in the Gulf of Mexico. Our world is changing. On the morning of January 16th, a rare and phenomenal sight was photographed over New Orleans, Louisiana. A tube-shaped roll cloud was captured in dramatic images and video as it rolled across the sky. The roll cloud appeared just prior to an Arctic air mass moving into southern Louisiana, where snow accumulation is presently falling over much of the Baton Rouge area. More than 71 million people are now under a severe winter weather alert across much of the United States, while states of emergency have been declared in multiple states, including Alabama and North Carolina, due to the inclement cold and treacherous ice that has imperiled these regions. In Michigan, a cosmic event of enormous intensity was seen and felt north of Detroit in the evening hours of January 16th. A bright fireball illuminated the sky over Michigan, followed by a sonic boom that reverberated over a wide area. The blast was so intense that the USGS registered it as a 2.0 earthquake. The American Meteor Society received so many calls from startled residents that the website of the AMS crashed. NASA's Meteor Environment Office has calculated the event as being a slow-moving meteor at a speed of 28,000 miles per hour. The space rock is estimated to be at least 3 feet in length, which penetrated deep into the atmosphere before exploding. It is expected that meteorites hit the ground in the vicinity of the explosion. If you have been paying close attention to the news in the past few weeks, there have been a number of articles from mainstream sources such as The Guardian magazine and Forbes that are suggesting that the slowing down of the Earth's rotation is going to lead to an escalation of earthquakes this year, 2018. There may be some truth in their predictions. In the first 2 weeks of the new year, there have been several major earthquakes of greater than 7.0 that have occurred in both the northern and the southern hemispheres, with the strongest being the Caribbean quake of magnitude 7.6. The dramatic fluctuation of the temperatures that are now occurring is something that is quite alarming, because it suggests that the dynamics that comprise the Earth's crust are shifting, while at the same time the Earth's rotation is slowing down. Some of you may be convinced that man-made global warming is responsible for the bizarre temperature inversions that we are now feeling. But it is more of a far-fetched notion to believe that global warming, if caused by humans, can slow the Earth's rotation and cause major earthquakes across the globe. Some have even suggested that the tectonic realignment of coastal plates that are most likely responsible for receding oceans and shifting tides on continents such as South America is caused by an overabundance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as a result of global warming. This to me, and probably to many of you, sounds like a talking point of the scientists, who are, for the most part, manipulated and controlled by the elite, who call all of the shots. It doesn't take someone with a college education to understand that the Earth is being affected by something very powerful. As these anomalous events continue to escalate, at some point people begin to ask questions wanting to know what is happening. Truth can only be suppressed for a moment in time, and then it becomes necessary to leak information in bits and pieces in order to avoid the ripple effect of chaos and pandemonium. Something as important as the welfare of this planet and the survival of humanity cannot be kept a secret indefinitely. If not for the many brave individuals who devote much of their time and efforts to better inform the public, we would all be lost in the dark and unaware of the obstacles that lie in wait. I cannot say this enough. We must continue to look to the sky for answers. The signs are being manifest before our eyes. And yes, this is our moment to shine, to stand up and seek guidance and understanding. It is important at this critical moment in our lives to educate ourselves regarding the earth changes which are unfolding, and to be fully engaged in helping others who may be